Hey guys, welcome back. We're back on the Finn's Faithful podcast. Thanks for joining us on this Monday night. As always, we're live with you guys on YouTube. So make sure you guys come on over, hit that little bell, hit the thumbs up, give us a like and subscribe, help support us here. We really appreciate it. All right, so we're 10 days away from the draft. Tons of smoke screens and rumors. We're going to try to sift through it all and kind of give you what could the Dolphins' best options be at 13 and 48. And we'll get into some other draft topics that are hot right now. And to join me to do all that is a friend of the program. He's been on here a few times, and I mean he's one of the best in the business, Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports, draft analyst. Ryan, thanks for your time this Monday night.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's again, it's this time of year. We're getting close. We're all tired of talking about it until we finally get there, but we're close. All right. Before we get to the Dolphin stuff, I think it's significant if we talk about the top of the draft. It seems to be coming in focus, right? The top 3, 4, 5, even. Cam Ward 1 to Tennessee, Travis Hunter 2 to Cleveland, Abdul Carter 3 to the Giants. Is that how you see? I mean, there's wiggle room there. It's tough. This is not the easiest draft to predict. I will say that. You kind of see the top coming into more of a focus, Ryan.
Top two for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's been Cam Ward for months, if we're being
Yeah.
honest, like even before the combine. Like we knew that Cam Ward would be going number one, the quarterback out of Miami. The question was if it would be Tennessee making the pick. Like that was kind of the conversation point, right? So we knew Cam would be the top pick. Number two has been debated a little bit, because, obviously Cleveland before they made a couple, I don't know if you want to call solid moves and Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Like I don't think you would call it that, but
Yeah.
they went the veteran quarterback market, and I think that they are more intense on taking best player available. And for there's been a little debate of is that Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State, is that Travis Hunter, the wide receiver corner out of Colorado. I ultimately think that it is going to end up being Travis Hunter because I do think there's an intent for that 32nd ranked offense to find something of value at that spot and to find an explosive weapon. So I think the top two are pretty consensus at this point. Number three, I think, is still a little bit wacky. Like I do think it's a little bit up in the air right now because there is a argument to be made that you take best player available, maybe you go to an Abdul Carter, but when you look at the Giants roster, they have a couple decent edge rushers, right? Like you have Kayvon Thibodeau, you have Brian Burns, so it's not a biggest need on paper. But then the other conversation point is you've done the free agency quarterback market of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and you've seen to solidify that with veterans, but maybe you still can take a Shedeur Sanders if you really want. Ultimately, I think that they will take a who they deem to be the best player available. I think that is Abdul Carter, and that's who I will continue to mock them until draft day is officially here. But that is a little bit of a pivot point in this draft, George, in my opinion, is number three. I mean, it makes sense, but also there could be a couple different things, and honestly, that could kind of be the tipping point of like the chaos in the top 10 if that potentially happens, depending on who the Giants take at 3.
Yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat. Mia, Elwood, the Finn's Tailgate channel. What's up? Check those guys out. They do great work over there. Also, Finn Sammy with Finn TV. Check them out. Make sure you follow their channels. They do great stuff. And if you're watching anybody anywhere else, come on over to YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe button. I know Finn's Tailgate already smashed that button, so we appreciate it. All right, you mentioned the top 3. We didn't mention Sanders. I think it's a case of you do your homework. To me, Ryan, there's only one first-round quarterback in this draft. Like, I can live with Sanders 25 to 40. I could stomach it, right? Not in the top 10 for my liking, right? That's just for me. Yeah. If he doesn't go in the top 3, is the next quarterback home 9 New Orleans, especially with the David Carr stuff? If not, then I don't think I know there's going to be a lot of Dolphin fans if he's there at 13. I don't think they do it, but where does he slide? Does somebody move up? Or does Pittsburgh at 21 become the floor?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I think there's 3 teams that I would kind of highlight in this conversation. One, the easiest one is New Orleans at 9. Now, they're in a tough spot because you still have Derek Carr. I know he has the injury now that he's dealing with. You drafted Spencer Rattler last year. Is he kind of the stopgap until you get back to Derek Carr at some point? Like, there's an interesting conversation about quarterback there. But I think that they are probably the most likely in the top 10 outside of who we're speaking of with Tennessee taking one. The one that I think is a little bit of a wild card that people don't talk about much is the Jets at 7. Like they're a little bit of a wild card because, Yes, they have Justin Fields on the roster, but they gave Justin Fields like 2 years, $40 million. Like that's nothing, right? Like that for a quarterback, that's absolutely chump change. There is much more of a see how Justin Fields plays, and then we'll take it from there conversation. I think you can still afford to take a quarterback if you really wanted to. So they're a little bit of the interesting wild card in the top 10. I think New Orleans is most likely. Pittsburgh is super interesting in this conversation
Yeah,
because
they're all over
if
the
they really
QBs,
want
huh?
him,
They're all
what's
over
that?
them. They're all over the quarterbacks.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they kind of have to be, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
until Aaron Rodgers finally does it and signs with them, like they don't really have a quarterback, to kind of stomach their, hopefully their sustainability as an organization. So I think they could be in the quarterback market. They're the one team that I look at and say if there's a team that does trade up, it's probably the Steelers who are sitting at 21. But then someone told me a fascinating thing. I didn't even think about this. Apparently, Pittsburgh hosts the draft next year, and if you trade up and you give up like next year's first, let's say in a trade up, do you really want to be the home team of a draft that doesn't have a first round pick? It's stupid. It
yeah.
doesn't probably
No,
actually
yeah.
make any sense. But like I thought it was like an interesting just conversation point. But I do think we actually had a mock draft that dropped on the A to Z Sports Film Room channel on YouTube today, and we actually did have the Bears at number 10 trading with the Steelers. So the Steelers decided to come up to number 10 to draft Shedeur Sanders to make sure that they get their guy potentially in this draft. And the Bears are at number 10 are kind of in no man's land, not like too many like crazy major needs, and the board kind of dries up at that point. So they might be a little bit of a trade back candidate. So I think that Pittsburgh and New Orleans are probably the most likely, but I will say in like the long-winded answer of the Jets are kind of a wild card, I think, at number 7. I wouldn't be shocked if they did. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. I'm not really 100% sure what they're
Yeah.
going to do at 7.
Yeah, I know. I hear a lot of old line there. I heard a lot of love for Jackson Dart there. I'm not buying that. You're not buying the Dart in the top 15, are you? Is that
I'm
real?
not.
It's kind of like the Mac Jones stuff. Remember, he's going
Yeah.
third overall, and then even 15 was high for Mac Jones. But
Yeah.
I'm not buying it for a second. I don't see a first round player there at all.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he gets drafted that early, like top 15. I would be shocked if that
Yeah.
happens. I know New Orleans has been a team that has been, kind of connected with him a little bit, but Nick Underhill, who is one of literally one of the Saints beat guys over there, like he works for the Saints as like one of their media
he's pretty
guys.
plugged in. Yeah.
Yes, he's very plugged in, and he said that they like Jackson Dart, but they like second round Jackson Dart, not number 9 overall Jackson Dart. Like that's a big designation.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, so I don't think he goes that early. Could a team draft him in the back end of the top of the first round if they wanted to? I guess it's possible, but I've kind of been on the wave here of I still don't think that he goes first round. I could be completely wrong about that, but like there's just something there that it kind of smells fishy to me. Like it feels very Will Levis-ish to me.
Yes.
Like it just does. Like I just feel like he's going to end up being a early second round pick, not a first rounder. But we'll know if I'm right in 10 days.
Yeah, one of these teams at the top that don't hit that quarterback in the top 10. One of those teams, I say, okay, you can sell me on that, but nowhere near the top 10. All right,
exactly.
So bringing it to the Dolphins here, we're at 13. You know the needs: offensive line, defensive tackle, corner, safety. Let's start with the O-line. Chances that either Campbell or Embo fall to 13. And do you think the Dolphins would? I would pull the trigger on Embo. He's a right tackle. Do you think they'd pull the trigger? Because of the fit. He's a tremendous player, but he's mainly a right tackle. You can move him inside though. But I guess the bigger question: either one of those guys gets to 13.
It's going to depend, I think, on what New England does at number 4. They are the team that could start the offensive line conversation, right? And if they draft someone at 4, it's probably likely at least one more goes before 12. I mean, just kind of like historically speaking, like that's just kind of how positional value works, right? So if New England passes on an offensive tackle and they draft some other position, I don't even know what other position it would be. I mean, maybe if an Abdul Carter's there at 4 for whatever reason, like maybe you decide on that instead of taking the offensive tackle. But if they take a Armen Membu at pick 4, then I think it's unlikely because I even think of like one pick in front of Miami is San Francisco at 11, right?
Yeah.
And they would make a lot of sense for an offensive lineman, right? They have a poor right tackle, they have an aging left tackle, and they have a need inside as well. And a Will Campbell or Armin Membu could both fill that potentially. So I would say that I'm about I think there's a
I love
if
percentages. I
it's a
love
very
them.
it's a very low percentage. I was trying to
Yeah,
put an actual percentage on. If
yeah. I'm a big
I'll,
percentage guy.
I'll
Everybody
say
knows
this.
that. Mhm.
If one of the tackles goes at 4 for New England, I think there's almost a
It's no
0%
joke.
chance
Yeah,
that there's
yeah.
that both
I
those guys, or either one of those
'cause-
guys are on the board. If one of them doesn't go that early, then I think there's a chance that one of them is
yeah, because
ultimately.
even if it starts, I think the Jets are in play for O-line at 7 too, probably, right? So even if it starts at 7, again, 11 with the Niners, and they're looking at the same
Yep.
type of, whatever lineman fits the Dolphins is the same for the Niners. So yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Yep.
So I say, what do you say? 30% chance it happens. 20.
I'll say there's a 30-ish
Okay.
percent chance that
So
one of them is on.
more
the
than
field.
likely
Yeah,
it
it's
won't
pretty
happen,
low.
right? I agree with
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Embo's fit with the Dolphins. You would still take him regardless, right? Whether he's going to play right tackle, you kick Austin in to right guard. He's just too good of a player at a position that you need to
Yeah.
address finally.
He's fascinating for New England, just to backtrack at 4,
Yeah.
because that's a spot that's been kind of like they're a team and a player that's been connected a little bit. Membo's a really good right tackle, right? And he
Yeah.
could play inside a guard if you needed him to as well. I don't think a team is going to necessarily force him inside unless there's a weird circumstance. But if New England drafts him at 4, they're probably going to make him play left tackle, like, because they
Yeah.
just got Morgan Moses, right, who's a longtime right tackle. They need a left tackle, so they would probably so that would be a fascinating just conversation point. I'm curious if that does tip the scale of Will Campbell versus Armin Membu, like one way
Yeah.
or the other for New England at 4. But yeah, I mean it for Miami. Look, you need a left tackle, obviously long term now with the Armstead stuff, right? But Jackson is also very replaceable at right tackle.
And I think you can move him inside if you need
could.
to. Yeah.
I think that would probably be the wisest decision, to be honest, right? Because I know that he had a pretty decent year at right tackle. What was it, 2 years ago when he got the
Yeah.
contract, and he
He's
was
been
better.
hurt. Yeah.
Yeah,
He got
but
hurt last.
he's just not.
He's an
He's
average
one of your
right tackle.
best.
He's an average right tackle in this league.
Yes, and but he is still one of your best 5, right? And if he's
Yes.
one of your best 5, he's going to get on the field in some
Yep.
capacity. I would obviously rather play Membu at right tackle if I'm drafting him that high comparatively to where Austin Jackson is during the course of his career development. So I think that could potentially make some sense. I am fascinated to see though who plays left tackle for the Miami Dolphins now with Patrick Paul. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll
I didn't love the pick when he came out, and everybody knows that. But I will say this about Paul. It was inconsistent the tape last year, but the things I didn't like about him, man, he's just so, like, his length and how strong he is. He just kind of gets away with it. Some of the weird hand technique and placement because it's so rare, the length. And for a guy, I always say this, for a guy who has those long arms to do 31 reps he did last year, guy, you know more than anybody, Ryan, it's the short arm, barrel chested guys.
Absolutely.
It's like Jake Long when he came out. I think Jake Long did like 37 reps and he's 6'7". I was like, man, this guy is a monster, So that's the saving grace. He's not Jake Long, obviously, but like that's, to me, I got some hope, but you're relying on him. Embu, listen, you need to get 5 really good offensive linemen, at least 3 really good offensive linemen on the field. And like 2, you can't have 5 elite offensive linemen. You're going to be average in a couple spots. You probably want to be average in the guard position, right? If anything, but figure it out. And this guy gives you versatility to play left tackle. And another strange thing is this is a weird offensive line class. There's not a lot of true left tackles, Brian.
There's not, but it doesn't matter as much for Miami, really, right?
Yeah,
because you have a left-handed quarterback, so the right tackle's a little bit more.
Ryan, as of right now, we have a left-handed.
Yeah,
right
sure.
now.
Well, It's a great point.
Or unless we got Dylan Gabriel,
Yeah. Well, I was literally having a conversation about this on our podcast where we're just talking about, people just keep kind of saying that Josh Simmons from Ohio State is going to keep falling in the class because of the patella tendon injury.
I like him a lot.
Oh, he's my offensive tackle.
Wait. Am I the only one crazy here about Josh? I'll tell you how I really got to love Josh. I was watching Donovan Jackson tape. I'm like, who? I'm just keep looking at the left tackle. Like, I'm like, and everybody's saying he's falling. I'm like, this guy, healthy, is a top 5 pick offensive left tackle in the draft. My opinion. That's my opinion. I've been standing on that island, and I'm glad I welcomed somebody on that island. I know with some Dolphin fans, anybody but Josh Simmons. Let me tell you something. You draft Josh Simmons, I know you might not like it, but you got your starting left tackle, if healthy, for the next 10 years.
Well, he is, if he did not get injured with the season he was having, if he just continued the same trajectory, we'd probably be talking about him for New England right now.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we would be having that conversation. No, he's got the patella injury. But then also there's some whispers about some, just character concerns, laziness, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that personally from my end, so like I refrain from just reporting what I know
Yeah.
ultimately, right? So I haven't heard any of that stuff, so I'm not going to take that as the gospel at this point. All I'll say is if he is falling or people are portraying him as falling, I don't think he's going to fall that far because to your point, the left tackle position is so important in the NFL. And outside of Josh Simmons, how many guys in this class are you truly certain are going to be able to play left tackle and stick at left tackle? I mean, think about it. Like
Not
Will
many.
Campbell, we're having a huge debate on if Will is better as a tackle or a guard. We're having that conversation. Kelvin Banks
Jr.
out of Texas, like, is he a tackle? Is he a guard? We're having that conversation. Ariante Ursary out of Minnesota, is he a left tackle? Is he a guard? Is he a right tackle? Like, we're having this conversation over and over again. Josh Simmons is one of the few players in this class that I look at and say, that's a left tackle. Like, I don't need to move him. Like, you can move him the right tackle if you wanted to, if you had a stud left tackle or whatever. But, like, I don't need to move him inside the guard because there's no lack of length. There's no lack of athleticism. He's comfortable on an island. He is, I think, one of the more talented offenses. I think he's the most talented offensive tackle.
I agree with you, man. I
think
one
he's
of the
the
most.
best offensive tackle. Yeah,
man, I'm glad you say that because, like, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, what am I missing here? I think if he stays healthy and some playoff team gets him in the 20s, and you're going to look back and say, man, we let this guy fall,
It's going to be the most Kansas City Chiefs pick of all time
yes.
if he somehow gets there, or they trade up like 3 or 4 picks and they get a falling, or whatever. Yeah, it's going to be one of those teams where it's just like, okay, sure, the Kansas City Chiefs have Josh Simmons.
I think why Dolphin fans don't like it is because Patrick Paul can't play anywhere else. Yeah, he can't play inside. Still, you don't let a guy who's unproven stop you from a guy you think can eventually be a Pro Bowl player at that position. All right, so we think the top guys are gone. I'm going to throw a couple names there. Okay, Kelvin Banks Jr. I will say this about him. Initially, wasn't so high on him. As the more I got into it, I see it a little bit more. I see the stuff he does. He would actually fit well with the Dolphins like to do. Greg Zabel is a name that's probably where his name starts to be talked about. Maybe a little rich, but I think his name starts to become in the room. What are your thoughts on those two guys, Ryan?
Yeah, Banks, I think there's kind of like a weird hatred on Kelvin Banks for some reason. And
I had it in the beginning.
Yeah. And I get it. Sometimes when a guy's a 5-star and you've known about him for a few years, like, if he's not this just perennial whatever and he's not a top 10 lock, some people kind of turn on him and say like, oh, he's overrated. And I get that fully, right? But he is 6'4 plus. He's about 320 pounds. He's got good length. He's a pretty good athlete. He's got good strength profile. Like, he might not do anything at an elite level. Like, I don't think Kelvin's necessarily elite at anything.
He's got a high floor.
He's got a high floor. He's going to be a good offensive lineman. The question is it going to be as a tackle or is it going to be a guard? I mean, my answer is I don't really care, right? Like, there's not enough good offensive linemen in the NFL right now. Like, you drafted a good offensive lineman. That's awesome. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like Kelvin Banks for what he is. He was never a top 10 draft pick like people acted like he was. He's more of a top 25 draft pick, right? Like, he should go somewhere probably between 11 and 25. Like, that should be the Kelvin Banks range, in my opinion. So he's a good player, not an elite player, not a great player, not a 5-star caliber dude that we once thought he was from a recruiting profile perspective, but he's a good offensive lineman. Gray Zabel, I like Zabel. It's funny enough, I actually was a part of a consulting group that actually recommended Gray Zabel a couple years ago to a specific scout. So I like Zabel, a really smooth player. He played a lot of guard earlier in his career, played more tackle recently at North Dakota State out of necessity. I think that he's a really smooth mover. He's got really flexible hips. He moves well laterally. He's a pretty tough dude as well. Like, he'll fight you, right? I think the top 25 hype that I'm hearing right now, I think it's a little too rich for me, to be honest. I think he's good. Do I think he should be a top 25 pick? No, not necessarily, but he's still a good football player, and I think that he's going to be a solid starter, at least inside a guard or potentially center, and he might even be a little bit better than that. So, yeah, he's a good player. I think he's just a really solid overall player in this class.
Yeah, we're talking draft here with Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports. One of the best draft analysts. I'm telling you, check his work out. He does great stuff. I have him on the show all the time. Again, if you're watching anywhere else but YouTube, come on over to YouTube. smash that little thumb, give us a like, and a little bell for subscribe, help support the channel. We really appreciate it. Okay, so if it's not any other lineman at 13, like Booker in the inside, I mean, I know he's not a scheme fit. I don't rule it out completely for the Dolphins like everybody else. Anybody else but Booker there, or that's it for the offensive line round one that you're comfortable with at 13?
Yeah, I think that kind of ends it. I think in a vacuum, and am I okay with Tyler Booker in that range? I am. I honestly am. But to your point, is he a perfect wide zone offensive guard?
Yeah.
No, he's not. He's not.
I think he could do it though. I mean, I think people saying he can't. I think he could though, right? Like
I think he can, but like the conversation is that what's best for him though, right? And that is that good value in that range for that particular scheme? I would say probably not. Like he's an inside zone gap power player, right? Like he can do either one of those things really well, as long as he's more of a vertically explosive guy than a laterally explosive guy. Like that's just not ultimately his game.
Agreed.
But my conversation would be though, if he's the best player available, and if Mike McDaniel is such an offensive genius, I'm not insulting Mike McDaniel. I actually do think he's a very good offensive mind. I'm not insulting
go ahead.
him.
It's all right, man. The Dolphin fans won't hate you.
But I think about this with like Sean McVay in Los Angeles a couple years ago, right? Like you had Todd Gurley. He was a very outside zone heavy scheme guy. And then he gets hurt. And then you have guys like Sony Michel. And then you have Kyron Williams the last couple years. And they don't run much outside zone anymore. They're much more of an inside zone driven team. My point is that you as a coach are supposed to make the system fit your players, not the players fit the system all the time necessarily. Like do what your players do well. So if you think Tyler Booker is a slam dunk easy first rounder and he's a guy that is a really good football player, maybe you alter your scheme a little bit to fit his strengths a little bit more. Like you don't have to run outside zone every single running play. Like you could be more of a diverse person. So that's just like my quick rants. Like I hear that all the time of like, he doesn't fit the system. I'm like, well, you're supposed to make the system fit the player too sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you're supposed to make that happen. So
I always say this: get the best players in the building, figure it out later. Like you know, this team has struggled on the offensive line for so many years. Get guys that you think who can sniff a couple Pro Bowls is what they need to do right now, and not so worried about does he exactly fit this scheme perfectly. If he's a better football player than you think, if he's better than Kelvin Banks Jr., you take the better player, right? Like All right. So let's quickly go to the second round of that position. We'll move on to the 48. Savanea.
Savanea. Yep.
Oh, you know, I'm a big Savanea. I'm so glad he ran so well, man, because I was like, people are dogging him for his athleticism.
He tested really well, man. Tested really well, yeah.
Marcus Bowe, another guy. What name?
Yeah.
What? I think he's a scheme fit. You know, versatile, athletic, a little undersized, but in arm length. What are your thoughts on 48? Give me some guys you think you like there on the offensive line, whether it's guard or tackle for them.
I love Jonas Savanea. He's one of my favorite players in the draft.
Man crush member.
Yeah, he has started games at right tackle, left tackle, and inside a guard for Arizona. Yep. I actually do think he could play tackle. Like I do think he could play tackle, but after everything that you're hearing him talk about, it sounds like he's very intent on playing guard, which is fine. Like ultimately, like that's cool.
Yeah.
He's got the length though to potentially fit outside if he wanted to. He's definitely got the foot quickness. Like I think that his feet are really explosive into his set as a pass protector. Like I think his feet are really good, but I do think that he has an intent to potentially play inside a guard. And honestly, I do think his upside is higher at guard. But me saying that is that I still think he could play tackle. But if you ask me what position is he a potential plus starter at, it's probably guard more than tackle in my opinion. I want him to be more aggressive as a blocker consistently. I think the power is there in spurts. I think he's a really good athlete, and I think he's got a huge frame. So I think that all those things together gives me hope that he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. And honestly, if you would have went him back for one more year and he would have, got rid of some of the warts, we might be talking about a first rounder. Like he has that type of talent at least. But ultimately, we're talking about a guy that's going to be more in the back end of the top 50 than a top 32 player, obviously. But I think he's a starter. In your system, in Miami's system, easy fit. Yeah. I mean, literally, Arizona ran a lot of outside zone, and he's a really clean, easy mover on the interior especially. So, yeah, that's an easy one. You mentioned Bowe. Bowe, he's played guard at Purdue, started at right tackle, obviously, this past year. So he's a pretty versatile player. He's played all over the place. His tackle traits are just kind of average as far as like length and body type, that type of thing. But he's a great athlete. I mean, he
Yes.
moves exceptionally well. So again, he's a starter inside for absolutely. But I do think there's some systems, Miami's would be one of them, where if you told me that Marcus Bowe is looked at as a right tackle that maybe, get a shot at least, let him fail at right tackle first, I could see that type of thing happening ultimately. So he's a kid that I think right in that range makes a whole lot of sense. After that, like you're starting to trend, like things start getting a little bit thinner after that, right? Like I do like I'll give you an example of a guy. I like Anthony Belton from NC
Yes.
State as a developmental starter, but I'm more like him in the back end of the top 100, not necessarily like a top 50 overall player. So 48 would be a little bit out of the realm, but if you get a Savanea or a Marcus Bowe, or I would even tell you, I actually don't even know what Miami's like center situation is, but even a
Aaron
Jared
Brewer.
Wilson from Georgia,
Oh,
like that
Jared,
would
yeah,
be
he
a,
fit. They have Aaron
yeah.
Brewer. He played well last year, but Wilson is a tremendous athlete.
And he could play guard. And he
Yeah.
could play guard ultimately, right? Like he's 6'3", he's over 300 pounds. He could play guard if you needed to.
Oh,
But I
he'd
mean,
be
he ran
perfect down here with his. And he killed the
4'4".
combine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with you on Bo. Does he have a little Zach Tom in him?
That's the easy comparison, honestly. Like the body type is very similar. The
Versatility,
arm
yeah,
length is
yeah.
exactly the same. I think they were
Yeah.
both 33-inch arm guys. They're athletic, but they're also crafty with how they play as well. Like I mean, if you just pop on Marcus Bowe film, which I know you have, like
Yeah.
you see the snatch trap, like you see
Oh.
good hand usage, like all that type of
There's
stuff.
a lot
Like,
to
he's
like
a
there.
player.
Yeah, there's a lot.
He's a
I couldn't
smart,
believe- yeah.
tactical kid that's a good athlete. So all those things together, I think that it's very interesting. Again, he's going to be a heavily debated guard versus tackle kid, but I do think in a right system, the wide zone system, or heavy play action, working different slide protections, that type of stuff, I think that he could definitely be an asset in that system at tackle.
What about Ezra? They run that zone there in Minnesota, right?
Ursula, yeah.
Ursula, sorry,
Mhm.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about him. You know what I mean? He's
I
one
like
of those guys
Ursula.
that I like
him.
his length. Yeah. I like the way he what he does in the second level. I think he could fit, but you see more of a tackle, right?
I think he's a kid that you let fail at tackle first, because he's got a huge frame, he's got 34-inch arms, so like he has the profile to stick at tackle, but he's another kid where I think he has a high floor because he's a butt kicker in the run game, man. Yeah. Like he really is. He's physical, but he's also a little bit more. And I know his testing numbers weren't great as far like his 40 was really good, but his testing numbers as far as like change of direction stuff wasn't great. Like his short shuttle, 3-cone, but I just thought his lateral mobility was pretty good on film as far as in the run game. Maybe not on an island in pass protection, but like he moves well laterally.
Stuff, his run game movement on tape was good. I liked it. So those are some of the names at 48. I feel it does get thinner. It drops off like to the Georgia kids and all that. But all right, so let's move to defensive tackle. That's another position at 13. Mason Graham could go as high as 5. I've always thought he's a kid. He's not going to test great, and he's not dripping with tremendous athletic traits. A lot like Christian Wilkins fell to 13. Like I don't think he'll make it to 13, but like he's a guy I could see slipping a little bit. If you told me like he's available at number 9, it wouldn't surprise me. But I actually think Kenneth Grant would be the better fit for the Dolphins. So at 13, Grant, and I'm looking at Walter Nolan. Which of those two guys do you like? I think Walter Nolan's a sneaky. I mean, this guy, I think Walter Nolan, if he gets his attitude right and everything, he could be as good as he wants to be,
Yeah. So funny enough, the Mason Graham, Christian Wilkins comp, that's literally a comp that I've made. So like,
he jumped off.
Like him.
It's if you know what you're doing, that's what you put on there.
Yeah. He's just so stellar in the run game, man.
Yeah.
Just so stellar in the run game. Plays with
so
good
nifty
motor,
and quick in short area.
Yeah. Kenneth Grant's highs are as high as any defensive tackle in this class. He is a little bit inconsistent as far as just playing with good posture, pad level, like those types of things, being consistent, get off like that. But he's so strong. He's super agile. He's over 330 pounds and he moves exceptionally well. The easy comp is Dontari Poe for how athletic he is for his size. And Poe was pretty good with Kansas City
before
he kind of trended downward. So I think as a playmaking nose, there's a lot to like with a Kenneth Grant. I'll give you a sneaky guy at 13 that I think could go that high potentially, and that's Derek Harmon from
Yeah.
Oregon. I think that he could go in that range, like potentially, and he's extremely interesting depending on what you're looking for, right? Like he was a 330-pound nose 2 years ago at Michigan State. He went to Oregon. They took 15, 20 pounds off of him, and they said, you're going to be a penetration style player. And then he led all of college football in interior pressures this past year, right? So he's more of a, I can move all over the place. I can still play some one at times if I want to, but I can be three. I can play two, 2I, 4I. Like his length, athleticism complement is incredibly impressive. So I could see him being a guy if Miami does like a guy at 13, that a player like a Derek Harmon out of Oregon makes a lot of sense. And he is my second ranked defensive tackle in this class after Mason Graham. I'm a huge fan of Derek Harmon for the just athletic and versatility perspective that he brings to the table.
So at 13, you would go Harmon, Grant, Nolan in that order, or Nolan Grant?
I would go Nolan Grant. I would go Harmon Grant.
Nolan.
I can buy into the Nolan talents and the athleticism and the upside. Like I think I said it this way, that if you gave me the 10 or 15 best plays of Walter Nolan the entire year and just put it on a highlight reel and put it up against anybody, you would say that is the best defensive tackle in the class. And I totally get it. He's super talented. He was a 5-star for a reason. I've heard just a few too many things about Walter Nolan that makes me very unsettled to draft him in the first round. If you told me everything was squeaky clean, I could get the best version of him, he's
could
probably
be as good
top
as
10.
Yeah, he could be as good as he wants.
Class.
Yeah, he could be as good as he wants at that position. Yeah.
The whispers are just a little bit too loud for me. They go all the way back to his high school days. They continue at Texas A&M and his 1 year at Ole Miss. So I'm just a little hesitant on him in that range, especially just because I think he's a little bit of a volatile prospect.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Going to the second round quickly. I love Alfred Collins, high floor. Mm-hmm. That smirk every Ryan.
What up?
I'm a big Alfred Collins fan. I just love the frame. He's an elite run defender, man. I think he comes in right now, and the Dolphins need guys who can play right away. I'm a big Alfred Collins fan. There's other guys in that range. Darius Alexander, the kid from Norman Lott, Tyleik Williams.
Lott,
Those are kind of the guys at 48. Which do you think most of those guys make it there? And what are your thoughts on Alfred Collins?
Yeah. Alfred Collins was, I think, a pretty average football player throughout the majority of his career, and then he was a completely different dude in 2024 compared to what he had to be. He's one of the more high-floor run defenders in this class. He plays with good pad level for the most part. He understands how to use hand combat. Like, he's a very active run defender without question. He was a former high-ranked kid, so you know that he has some athletic upside as well. So he is one of the more improved defensive tackles in this class. I think Tyleik Williams is probably off the board at 48 just because
there's not many of those guys that knows and versatility to play the 0, the 1, the 3.
For me, he's the best. He's the best just pure run defender of any interior defensive lineman in this class. Like he's not as exciting. Like he's not a Derek Harmon pass rusher. He's not a Darius Alexander pass rusher. But as far as like a guy that you just know is going to be a really good run defender, like Tyleik's going to go in and just going to be a stalwart against the run. He's going to be excellent in that department. So I think he'll be off the board before then. If he's there, run it. You know what I mean? Like just go run it to the podium. You don't have to think twice about that one. Crazy. So you mentioned Darius Alexander. He's one of my favorite players in this class. I think he ended up DT4 for me in this class from Toledo. Like
that pick
I
six.
love
Was it
skills,
the pick? I kept watching that pick six he had.
He moves so well, man.
I'm like, you want to know what he does athletically? Turn on this pick six.
Yeah. Well, and then if you go to the Senior Bowl, because obviously, exclusive interior player, they put him on the edge at the Senior Bowl in a couple rushes, and he's able to like bend outside track and win. And you're like,
little five tech action there.
I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good athlete, man. Like he's 6'3", he's 300 plus pounds, he's really clean frame, he's played all over the place at Toledo. I think he's a really good penetration player. Like that's a 3 technique at the next level, and I think he could be a really good penetrator. But yeah, he's an interesting player. Like I think that he's a little bit of an older prospect compared to some other defensive tackles in this class, but like still has athletic upside to continue to tap into. So I'm not as worried about the age as maybe some other people are. So I like him a ton. If you want just a guy that's just going to shoot gaps, like it's all he does, maybe not play at the point of attack a ton. Norman Lott. Like, yeah, I mean, his His first step is so good, but he's
Oh,
small, obviously. He can't really combat at the point of attack
yeah.
consistently, gets double
Oh, but
teams, but like just
he
split a
gets it.
gap.
He's in
He
the
splits
backfield.
gaps.
Yeah, I had Jackson Slater on. He told me toughest guy he had to block at the
Yeah.
Senior Bowl was
Yeah.
Norman Lott. So
He
yeah,
he's
and when
he's
players tell
extremely
you that,
interesting.
and he's not the only player who said that. When
Yeah.
players start saying that, you got to take that into account because nobody. I always say nobody knows how good. You know who knows how good players are? The players,
Other players.
the other players, right?
Yeah.
Like rookies who come into camp or players, quarterbacks, they can tell right away. Oh, this guy can't play. What do they draft? It could change, right? But
Yeah.
they'll be able to tell pretty quickly. Yeah, but I guess what Joshua Farmer, is he more of a third rounder for you?
I think he's more of a third rounder. I mean, there's some good D tackles in like that
So,
third, fourth round bucket, man. Like
Deontay Walker.
I'll tell you who I like a lot in like that third to fourth round range that doesn't get talked about a ton, but I think he's going to end up getting drafted in that range is CJ West from Indiana. Like,
yes,
that's one of my dudes.
Yes,
I actually
my brother
spotted him.
put me on him. Yeah,
I spotted him 2 years ago when he was at Kent State's, and then he entered the portal obviously and went to Indiana. He is, I mean, he's like 6'1" and some change, 316, but like so strong and so explosive. Like dude, he's tough to handle in one-on-one situations. I mean, he was a game wrecker for Indiana all year. And then he ran like 4.9 something, like he's explosive. He's got a really good first step, but he's dense and he's physical and he's strong and he plays low to the ground. Like that kid's a starting defensive tackle, in my opinion, pretty early on in his career. Like I would be shocked if CJ.
Yeah, I think he could go early round 3. I wouldn't be shocked if I see him early round 3. Like it wouldn't surprise me. Those kind of all right. So that's the again, we're going through. That's the defensive tackle. Again, everybody who's watching, thank you in the chat. Come on over to YouTube. Make sure you like that subscribe button. We are chatting with Ryan Roberts from A to Z Sports. All right, quickly, the corners. I know every Dolphin fan dream, and my dream is Will Johnson at 13. Look, I think it helped that he didn't run. I think that helped the cause, right? I think there's 2 corners we're looking at, right? It'd be Barron or Will Johnson. The likelihood Will Johnson makes it to 13 is what, Ryan?
I think it's pretty high, man.
Yeah, so do I. It's getting weird, right?
Something.
Yeah,
it's probably like 80% if I had to give it a thing. I mean, there's a chance that he might be available for like Cincinnati at 17. Like,
yeah, I know it's crazy. Why is that?
And part of it is, I think it's overthink a little bit, to be honest. I think it's prospect fatigue. I do. I think we'll like he ran a bad short shuttle time at his pro day or at his individual workout that he had, and everybody was just like, "Oh man, the change of direction." I'm like, brother, what film have you been watching that you said, "Hey, Will Johnson doesn't change direction well"? Like, what are we talking about?
I can't find many 6'2" corners that plant and drive like him. Like it's crazy. He run. His anticipation on dude, it's crazy to me. The injury, if he's there at 13, they don't take him, I'd be upset, man.
It's because I understand. Like, if someone wanted to say to me, "Hey, I don't think Will Johnson has great long speed," I would say I agree with you, and let's talk about how much that matters, right? Like, let's talk about that. But if you tell me I don't think he changed direction well, like you haven't been watching Will Johnson. I don't know what to tell you. You know, he reminds me of, and this is a comp that some people are going to love, some people are going to hate. He reminds me of Trumaine Johnson when he was on the Rams, the Rams version, not the Jets version. The Jets version was terrible.
Not the Jets
version. The Jets version was terrible.
I don't want to take him at 13 then.
On the Rams, he was obviously tall, long, really good anticipation, good change of direction, but he wasn't fast, right? And I think that's the same thing with Will Johnson. Like, he's not fast. He's probably a 4.52 in the 40. Like, he's not fast, but he is a guy that's just so anticipatory that I really don't care.
I've always said that when you play with that kind of IQ and anticipation, you're faster than a guy who runs a 4.38 who doesn't have that. You get to the spot. It's over and over again on tape. He's at the spots quicker than most guys. The long speed, I saw 4.48 on tape, 4.4, 4.5. I'm fine with it. Right, like it's fine. And people, you said it best. They're overthinking this.
Yeah,
stick and pick the guy. He's one of the better football players in this draft. Don't make that mistake. And I guess the other guy's Barron, right? Are you high on Barron? Is 13 rich for you? A little rich for me. It is. A little rich for me.
It's rich for me. Look, here's the thing about Barron. In a vacuum, do I really like Jahdae Barron? Absolutely. Would I want Jahdae Barron on my favorite football team? Absolutely. Like he's a winning football player.
We think alike. I know where you're going.
But here's the thing about him is that I know he played a lot of outside this year for Texas, but I
Yes.
still think he's an inside. I still think he's a nickel. I still think he's a nickel, and there's nothing wrong with that, George.
Not
There's
at
nothing wrong with
13.
that at all. But if we're talking about the value thing, right? The positional value and what matters most, I can get guys like Jahdae Barron at other spots in this draft, in my opinion, right? Like he is not Devin Witherspoon to me. Devin Witherspoon, I
Oh,
was like, that guy
yeah.
can play outside or in. He
Inside,
plays a
yeah.
lot of inside on the NFL level, and I don't care for a second because Devin Witherspoon is a absolute stud, and he was a stud coming out of Illinois. Jahdae Barron's not the same, in my opinion. Jahdae Barron is a really good nickel on the NFL level that I think in the right system can last outside. But here's what's going to happen that I'm a little scared of is that he went to the combine and ran 4.38 or whatever, 4.39. He ran
People
really
are gonna
fast.
they're gonna think he can do he can play outside.
They're going to draft him, and here's a hot take. I don't know how hot this is, but I think Barron will get drafted before Will Johnson. I do think
I've
that
heard
could
that.
potentially
I've been
happen.
hearing
Yeah,
that. I
I
hope
think
it's
that
not the
could happen.
Dolphins.
And if they do draft him that high, a team is going to draft him to play outside corner. They are not going to draft him high to play inside on the end. And I know some people are going to say, you just mentioned Devin Witherspoon. Literally, that just happened with him. It's just a different circumstance. I'm telling you right now that people are going to draft Jahdae Barron to be an outside corner. And I think he's going to struggle a little bit. And I think eventually a team's going to put him inside and he's going to be a stellar nickel, like a really, really good player. So I like him a lot. Do I think he should be a top 15 pick? No, I don't
I'm
think
on
he should be a
board.
top 15 pick. He's more of like a pick with a playoff team in the 20s or in the 30s where I'm like, yes, that's the guy that I want. Stellar
Yeah.
starting corner, stellar starting nickel, I should say. But I'm just, you have to be very specific with your scheme to play him on the outside. And I don't think that you want to be one note as a secondary in the NFL. I think that is the way to get exploited potentially.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more with it's his tape was fun in a vacuum. Like I liked it. And this year he did play on the outside. First year he really played primarily on the outside, but I'm not comfortable saying day one started on the outside. I think that 4.38 or whatever he ran almost was the worst thing that could happen. And for teams, right? Not for him, for teams, because they're gonna fool themselves. Will he be a good NFL player? I'm not saying he won't be. I'm not saying he can't play on the outside. But to me, you take him over Will Johnson, an outside boundary true number one corner. It's you're overthinking in your room. I'm not taking a Swiss Army knife at 13. Not doing that. You know,
there's a couple players this year that I think ran a lot faster than people expected, and it's kind of portrayed them in a different light than they actually are. And I think that Barron is one of them because I thought Jahdae Barron was going to run like 4.5 flat, which again, it's not bad, especially for a nickel, but like did not see 4.3 something on film. It's the same thing with Matthew Golden from Texas, the wide receiver. I guess it's just Texas guy this year, I guess. Like I thought he was like a 4.48, 4.47. Like I thought he was a good time. But then he runs 4.29, and then everyone's like, "Oh, Matthew Golden is Tyreek Hill," and it's like, nope, he's not. He's not. I promise he's not. But I've seen those comps. I've seen T.Y. Hilton. I've seen all these speedsters that we've seen over the years where I'm like, guys, Matthew Golden's a really good player. Yeah. Jahdae Barron's a really good player, but if you're drafting them to be speed demons, I think you're going to be really sad in the end. Like, I just don't think that's their game necessarily.
Yeah. One more position. I know you got to get out of here quickly. I know you got things to do, but let's go to the safety position quickly. Emanwari, Starks, the two guys. I don't love the depth of the safety class. I do like some guys later on, like Bowman, and I like the kid out of Penn State, Winston. But at the top 13, are you an Emanwari? Are you a Starks guy? Are they rich for either one of those guys?
I love Starks. I think he's suffering from what we talked about a little bit from like that prospect fatigue a little bit. I literally in our mock draft today, I had the Miami Dolphins drafting Malachi Starks at 13. Like I was because the tackles went early, and I'm just like, hey, like let's just do it. You know, you're replacing Javon Holland, obviously, like whatever. Yeah. But I think he is very overthought because we've known about him for a couple years. I don't think the 2024 tape was as good as the 23 tape because I think the 24 tape they asked him to play a lot of nickel. They asked him to play in the slot a ton, and I just don't think that's necessarily his game. Like his game is playing from depth, being a free safety, rangy over the top. Like that is Malachi Starks' game.
His high point body control catches are insane. Yeah. I
The
agree.
first time I saw him, he was a true freshman. And literally his first game, he had a pick where he was running with a receiver hip to hip, and he flipped his hips and he made this like crazy interception over the shoulder. And I thought he was a corner. Like I thought he was a corner. And funny enough, I know at least 2 NFL teams that actually like him at outside corner. Like they
Really?
think that he could play outside corner
Yeah.
potentially. So I I think he's overthought. I think he's one of the top 10 players in this draft still. He won't be drafted that high, but I still think that he could potentially go to a team like the Dolphins at 13. But there's also a possibility he could slide it to the 20s, depending on how just kind of the board shapes out and the board falls, like all those types of things.
Yeah.
But I like him a ton. I like Nick Emanwari, but here's the thing about Nick Emanwari. His processing isn't as good as like a player like a Malachi Stark. So I think he's a tick slow at times. And I think that he is best coming towards the line of scrimmage. He's 6'1" and 8, 220 pounds. He's super explosive. He can make plays in coverage, but I do think that he's better robbing short zones, playing some man against bigger slots or tight ends. Like I think that is his game. And is the team going to be able to use him properly? Because if they ask him to do the wrong thing, I think that you're going to get a very average football player. But if you ask him to do the right thing, I think you could get a plus starter. So it really just depends on fit. Don't ask him to be something he's not. Allow him to be what he is. And if you allow him to be what he is, I think he has a chance to be a very good player.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love the safety depth in this class. It drops off after 5 or 6 guys. You say it really takes a plummet. So if you're going to address safety, it's got to be probably with one of those first 2 picks. You agree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's wrap it up with this. I'm going to give you a couple of my man crush list guys. Right. I'll start with a wide receiver, Isaac Tesla. I love him. Man. His physicality, the big slot or the outside, love him. Like Dolphins, you want to read. They don't have a receiver like that. Round 3, round 4, round 5. Your thoughts on Tesla? Not Tesla.
Tesla.
Yeah.
He's a height, weight, speed guy, obviously, right? Like he's 6'3", he's 215, He can run, and I think at worst he's going to be a rotational wide receiver that's going to play a lot of special teams. Like, and he's going to be really he's going to be on every coverage unit.
He's violent,
like,
dude.
Kick
He's
return,
violent.
punt return, or punts. Like he's going to be on every single thing that you want. So yes, he's going to be a core team special teamer. He's a height, weight, speed guy who was a low volume guy, obviously, his last year at Arkansas, but there's traits there. It's now about, hey, does he do enough from a floor perspective to let's develop him? I think he does. Like I could see him being like it's not a perfect comp, but like a Mac Hollins, where like Mac Hollins makes his living on special teams, and eventually he starts to get a little bit more run as a wide receiver, and maybe he starts playing a little bit more, and he might even end up being better than like a Mac Hollins as a pure wide receiver. But like that path, I think is very similar, where they have a very high floor they bring to the table on special teams that allows them to develop their overall game as a wide receiver.
Yeah. I think his ceiling is going to be a lot higher than what he's drafted. And somewhere in day 3 or even late, I could see him sneaking into late day. You never know. All right, 2 more guys. This one he's just fun. Caleb Bransall from Tulane. Yeah. He's just a missile at the slot. Like, I love him. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean they blitz him off the edge a lot. He was at Troy originally, then he transferred to Tulane his last year. So he's a pure slot he's a pure slot safety type. I think he could do a little bit of everything, but he tested really well. I mean, I think he ran like in the 4.3s. So like he's
crazy.
He's a rocket. He's gonna play on special teams. I would like him to be a little bit more patient in coverage. Like I think that he needs a little extra level of patience because he's a very aggressive player, right? Like he wants to get downhill, he wants to get physical, he wants to get his nose dirty in the run game, like he wants to do those type of things, screen game, like that type of stuff.
I can see him at safety too, safety or nickel.
There's a lot of teams that actually like him at safety. So
I just think I like him. I mean, look, I don't know exactly what I want to do with him yet, but like I just want to get him on my team and let Anthony Weaver figure it out, because it's funny. I watched him, and then he ran. I go, everybody was shocked. I go, man, watch his film.
He's fast in film, yeah.
He's a missile. He's a rocket. I love him. And last guy, Charles Grant. I see some Teron Armstead in there.
Oh, love it. Charles Grant's so interesting out of William and Mary. He played mostly around like 285 during most of his career, and then he was kind of a late bloomer physically, and he got up to like 311 is what I think he was at the combine. But he's got right around 35-inch arms. He's a really athletic kid. He played a lot of wide zone at William & Mary too.
Oh.
So like he's got really good lateral mobility and foot quickness. And I mean, if not for the injury, I think we'd be talking about him as a slam dunk top 100 player. I still think he could go top 100, but like he's more of a third to fourth round bucket overall.
Pick 98. If I'm the Dolphins there at pick 98, I'm like, dude, I just think, remember Teron Armstead went smaller school when there's just a lot of athletic traits. All right.
And I will say Grant, he tested at the pro day because they had to do like the mock pro day or whatever recently. And he ran like 5.06 in the 40. I was told though, before the season at full health, he was running like in the 4.8s for scouts, like in the spring testing and stuff. So like, yes, this kid's a very, very good athlete.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Well, I appreciate it, Ryan, for you making time coming on. I know we kept you a little extra. I apologize for that. Maybe we can get you on sometime after the draft to talk about who the Dolphins pick. I guess we'll talk behind the scenes about that. But thank you so much. Before we go, Ryan, tell everybody where they can find your work and what you got going on A to Z Sports right now.
Yeah, we're in the home stretch now for draft coverage. So at Rise and Draft is me on Twitter. You can go follow all, I post all my content and everything over there. You can go on YouTube at A to Z Sports Film Room if you want to pop in there. We've done 1 million scouting reports, mock draft Mondays. We'll do some rumor mill stuff up until the draft, and then we'll do some reaction stuff and all that good stuff, and then we'll reset to the 2026 NFL draft pretty shortly after that because that's how the industry works. So
it goes real fast after.
Scouting reports, mock drafts, it's final big boards, all that type of stuff.
Okay, so we'll be back later on the week. I'm not sure the day. We'll definitely be back on Thursday with me and Jason Sarni. We're going to be breaking down the on-season, the running backs. Plus, we have some things in the works. So we'll see if I'll keep you updated on social media what we got going on. All right, guys. As always, guys, stay Fins faithful. We are out.